This is Dr. Chris Clayton. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Hypnosis Chat. I have with me my lovely co-host, Anjali, and today we're going to be talking about dreams, a very interesting subject for a lot of people. And I thought I would start out by kind of explaining how dreams work, how they start, what they do, and we'll talk about interpreting the meaning of dreams, and a couple other interesting topics a little bit later. So, one of the first widespread ideas about that dreams were more than just a random product of the brain at night was Sigmund Freud. Now, Sigmund Freud is often disregarded because a lot of his more out there ideas seem silly today. But really, a lot of the basic ideas, and one of the reasons we don't usually think about some of Freud's better ideas is because they're so standard. For example, the idea that dreams mean something, we just take that for granted. Like if you ask somebody in society, what does my dream mean? They don't say, oh, what are you talking about? Dreams don't mean anything. Like we assume that dreams mean something, but that wasn't the case before Freud. Also, the idea that we have an unconscious, that wasn't really even a major idea, especially in any of the scientific fields before Freud. So one of the main things he was talking about is that dreams have meanings and can be interpreted. So I want to talk a little bit about how I think about sleep and dreaming. When you are going to sleep, we sleep in sleep cycles. So you start out maybe like very awake, and then you become more relaxed, and you're laying down to go to sleep. And at some point, you cross this line, which isn't really a very definitive line. It's just that we call going to sleep. It's not a digital change. It's not a sudden on-off switch, like suddenly you're asleep. It's a very gradual change with no real, jarring steps. So at some point, you fall asleep. And in that very light state, you go into REM sleep. And that's when you dream. And then you go deeper and deeper. And then there's no dreaming or very little disjointed dreaming. And then you come back up and then you start dreaming again. So most people dream every 90 minutes or so when they're sleeping. So first of all, the idea that, if somebody says, oh, well, did you have any dreams last night? The answer is always yes. Or, did you have a dream last night? The answer is always yes, and it's always that it's multiple dreams. It's much more common that someone doesn't remember their dreams or isn't in the habit of remembering their dreams. So everyone dreams several times at night, usually maybe 5 or 6 times at night, depending on how much sleep you get. So that having been said, so as you get more sleep and then you fall asleep. So what is that point where you fall asleep? And I think the best way to define falling asleep is when your conscious mind, the part of you responsible for logic and decision-making, kind of becomes deactivated. So your imagination, your visual perception, your creativity, all those things are still on, but the first thing that goes as you fall asleep is your critical thinking, your logic, your decision-making. So those kind of skills get deactivated. So normally when we're awake, we think. When our normal thinking is controlled by the conscious mind. So if you just start daydreaming or thinking about something, then the more awake you are, the more likely you are to automatically control how you're thinking. Maybe you want to think just about what you're doing right now, or you don't let your thoughts get too disjointed because it's not that useful during the day to do that. So we control our thinking automatically during the course of the day. Then as we go to sleep, the closer we are to sleep, the less energy we put into controlling our thinking. So, and then as you go to sleep, cross whatever that invisible line is, once your conscious functions, such as critical reasoning, get sufficiently deactivated or sufficiently de-energized, then your thinking is more and more free to do whatever it wants. It doesn't have to remain constrained by our normal unconscious daily functions. So basically, dreaming is nothing more than thinking without the conscious restraints that we automatically put on it during the day. Does that make sense? Am I clear about that? Okay, so that's essentially, so dreaming is not some kind of special phenomenon it is in fact normal thinking that is unconstrained by our normal conscious rational corral that we tend to put our thoughts into. So you lay down to go to sleep, you're thinking about whatever automatically, and then as you get closer to sleep, you have less and less control. You put less and less control on your thinking as that part of you gets more tired, and your thoughts are suddenly free. Or not suddenly free. They're gradually free as you get more asleep, and that's what we call dreaming. And then as you get deeper into sleep, even those, like the imagination and everything, those also become deactivated. So it's kind of like things are getting deactivated as you're getting closer, more and more deeply asleep. And the conscious functions tend to deactivate first, and the unconscious functions tend to deactivate second. Okay, so everything good? So that's basically my idea of sleeping and dreaming. I think that's the most accurate way to think about sleep and dreams.
Well, this might be a silly question, may I ask?
Silly questions are my very favorite.
Can you dream while in hypnosis?
That's a good question. I would say that, first of all, okay. If you define hypnosis, normally the way I would define hypnosis is the state in between being asleep and being awake. And normally one would define dreaming as the thinking that you're doing while you're asleep. So, maybe those definitions are overly rigid for this question, but you would probably not call the type of thinking that you're doing in hypnosis dreaming. It would require a slightly deeper state. Not a much deeper state, because remember, dreaming happens at that light stage of sleep. But hypnosis happens right before sleep. So I hope that was a good question, helped to kind of clarify the difference between those things. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so this gets into what do dreams mean? And so most people, or a lot of people, have kind of a mystical idea about dreaming. And this is in no small part due to Hollywood and sort of popular interpretations of dream interpretation, where, and actually this kind of came from Freud too, and this is something that I don't think is the most useful way to think about it. A lot of people have heard the idea that dreams communicate to us in symbols, and that sounds very mystical, and generally that's not the most useful way to think about it, I don't think. So here's a better way to think about it. So you've got your normal thinking that's controlled. So if let's say you were to give someone like a truth serum, and they get sort of so disinhibited that they just start talking about anything. That's kind of the equivalent of what you're doing as you're falling asleep. You kind of think about anything that comes to mind. So when you're dreaming, the most useful things you can get out of interpreting a dream is, where do you go when you are not constraining yourself? Where do your thoughts go when you are not putting conscious parameters on your thinking? And it could be those things are important to you, or things that you don't want to think about or question during the day, but they're really on your mind. So those are kind of that. I think that's the best way to think about dream interpretation. What went on in the dream, and what barriers did it cross, and how does that reflect how you would normally think if you didn't have to restrain yourself? Okay, so let's see. So Anjali, would you, I think you said something about you had a dream last night or whenever. Do you have any dreams you want to share? It could be from any time.
I'm having slightly weird dreams every night.
Oh, really?
So
okay.
We'll just use the one that's fresh in my mind.
Okay, okay. Sounds good.
So I was in a group, and we were, I guess the best way to describe it, if you're in a stadium with a large group of people, but you're in a subgroup. And I got separated from the group, and I was trying to find the group. And I could sense that they were also looking for me, and we were like one step behind each other. I was looking for them, they were looking for me, and we were seemed like it was kind of like I could never find them, and I felt I was close. I felt like they were either right behind me or they were somewhere else.
Okay.
I never found them, but it was kind of like I was chasing the group, trying to find them. They were trying to find me. At least I thought they were trying to find me. And just little details. That was just the basic premise, I think.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I can remember that one.
Okay, that's good. Okay, good. And that's a good one. So first thing I would say about dream interpretation is it's useful to identify the drama or the story that's going on. What are the dramatic elements that are happening in the story, more so than the content? Usually the form of the dream, which are, like the dramatic structure, for example, is more important than the actual place that you're in, the actual people that are there. Mm-hmm. Those things could have importance, but it's usually the drama is usually more important. So what I heard was you were looking for a group of people and they were looking for you, and you never could find each other, and you were always just one step away. Mm-hmm. So just, my initial thoughts would be, maybe you feel like you are looking for a group, maybe like you feel like there's a group out there that you could fit into, but you haven't quite found them yet. And they're looking for you too. So they're not antagonistic. Notice these are people that are trying to find each other. No one's chasing anyone. No one's running away from anyone. They're trying to find each other. So I would say that, maybe there's something about you wanting to meet a certain type of people that also you think are trying to find you, and you just haven't found each other yet, or something like that. Would you say there's any truth to that interpretation?
I think it makes sense the way you were saying it. It seems like it would make sense, but when you wake up, you're always like, I wonder what that means. Like, it seems like you're trying to figure out what it means, but that seems like it's understandable.
So, that's my initial impression of it. One thing I would like to get away from with dream interpretation is the overly simplistic idea, which again was given to us by Freud. He did good things and bad things. That like balloons mean freedom, that sort of thing. So number one, content is usually not as important as the drama. And number two, one piece of content rarely means the same thing from one person to the next. So, we were at a baseball stadium. Baseball stadiums mean whatever. That is not a good way to do dream interpretation. Instead, we should look at what is the feeling associated, what's going on, and what feelings are resulting from that. So another question I would ask is, okay, so you're looking for this. What is the feeling? Are you frantically looking for them? Are you casually looking for them? Are they, is the fate of the world in the balance, or you're just kind of doing other things also? What is the feeling associated with the search?
It was more of a, like, I needed to do, like, my life depended on it.
Oh, okay. So
that changes everything, doesn't it?
Well, not everything, and that not really anything. That could just indicate that it's very important to you that you find these people, or it could be this thing. Like, it could be your brain will tend to work on impressions as the conscious mind goes to sleep and less corrals in your thoughts. It could also, like, for example, it could be that you're looking for a subject matter. Like, maybe you're looking for a certain thing or some aspect of your life, and it just came out as a group of people because your unconscious had the search idea, but it couldn't think of what you were searching for, because it normally relies on your conscious mind to fill in those details. So it just assumed, oh, well, maybe it's people. We'll just have these people here. So it could be people, it could be something in your life. But one thing I would say I'm pretty sure about is it's probably a search. It's probably something that both parties have a good feeling about. There's no antagonism, apparently. So, it might be something you're looking for. It might be, and then you expect that to be a good thing when you find it. So, and it could be very important. It could be, a central part of your life or your health or something related to an important goal that you have.
Interesting.
So
I'm surprised I was walking, because I usually start flying in my dreams. So
really?
you know what that means, right?
Well, again, flying does not necessarily mean anything, but a lot of people do say that flying does mean something. I have to look it up. I don't remember what it means. So anyway. All right. So, okay, good. So that's kind of where I would go. I don't think anything else can be said definitively without further thinking about it now. And normally what I would do if this was, if we were really searching we were doing dream therapy, we would analyze a number of dreams and look for common factors. Like, let's say there's another dream where she's looking for a book and she can't find it. It's always just out of her grasp. We would look at the similarities, the differences. We would probably, let's say that was the case. Let's say you had a dream where you were looking for a book and you couldn't find it. So we would probably eliminate the idea that it's people necessarily. It could still be people, but the one thing we would know for sure, we're pretty sure, is that you're searching for something, and this thing will help you in some way. It could be knowledge. It could be, something related to a hobby or whatever. So we would look for similarities, and the similarities would be more likely to be a key part of what your dream is trying to say, which is really it's just a reflection of your thoughts. So, okay, good. All right, so everything makes sense?
Oh, yes.
Good, good, okay. Okay, she's helping me to make sure that I am being clear and making sense and so on. So that's one of the reasons she is here with me and helping me out. Okay, so let's see. Any other questions or anything before we continue?
So are your dreams? I mean, dreams are such an interesting topic.
I agree.
So I just you shouldn't mistake your dream for being for somebody that you are. Like if you have a dream that you wake up and you're like, that is not like me at all, because everybody was there in real life, but you were just doing something that you don't normally do. Like say you were a serial killer in your dream.
Okay.
What is that supposed to mean? That's kind of scary.
Yeah. Well,
not that I've had that dream.
I would say that again, the stories. Are you looking at me? She keeps looking at me and looking at my lap. Okay. Oh yes, she wants to talk about dreams today.
It's our second co-host.
Our other co-host. So I would say, again, it's important to look at the story, look at the drama, look at what the goals are, what's trying to be accomplished. Are you a successful serial killer? Mm-hmm. How do you feel about it? It could be that you've got a lot of tension related to something, and your unconscious can't figure out exactly what it is because it relies on the conscious mind for that. So it relates it to something maybe you saw on TV. Yeah. Well, maybe it's that we'll just pull that content from the TV or from this memory or from a movie or a book or something like that, and that's how we'll play out this story. Your unconscious mind does as good as it can to make it accurate and to really go through it, but a lot of times the details, more often the content rather than the format or the story. Your unconscious is responsible for emotion, story, drama, so it knows that stuff well. Content is more logical. What particular person was it? Was it a serial killer or was it a librarian? Those things are conscious details, and those will tend to change. So if you have a dream and the content is weird, then it may or may not have any meaning, but the story will always or almost always have important meaning. So meaning it's just a reflection of what you're thinking about when you don't control your thinking. So does that answer that? Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see. So another kind of interesting phenomenon in dreams is repetitive dreams. Now, I remember that when I was a kid especially, I would have repetitive dreams all the time. I remember having some of the same dreams over and over and over and over. And so have you ever had a repetitive dream before?
Is that this? I know what you mean by repetitive, but what I can say yes. But what does that mean? You mean jump into the same point of your dream that you had last night, jumping into that same or the same?
That's another interesting thing. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I'm talking about having the same dream again from the start.
Sorry. Yes.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I'm just remembering now. Another interesting thing is one thing that I would do, usually when I hear about repetitive dreams, I hear about having the same dream and you're just experiencing it. Mm-hmm. One thing we're going to talk about, at least in brief, in a few minutes, is lucid dreaming, where you either are aware that you're dreaming and or that you are controlling your dream in some way. And I would remember that I would have some of the best, most enjoyable dreams I ever had were dreams where I would have the dream and then I would have the dream again, sometimes multiple times in the same night, and I would remember everything or almost everything. I had a chance to fix it or change it, or it's like, oh, I remember that door goes over there. I'm going to take this door this time. So, to me, those were the best dreams. Mm-hmm. So did you ever have anything like that? You're nodding.
Yeah, no, yes, definitely.
Okay, can you remember one?
Geez, that's almost like a story where you know it's like a choose your own adventure type dream that
right.
That's right. I can't off the bat.
Okay, that's fine. I would remember. I remember one was where I was in a maze and there were these buildings, and the interesting thing was, I don't even know if I knew I was dreaming, but I knew that I had been here before, and I knew what that way was. And I didn't question that I knew that. So I was like, oh, I know that way is not the right way because I went that way last time, not really questioning that. So I'm going to go this way this time. And I would get further and further in the story every time I had the dream. So I think that a couple things about repetitive dreams. One, it could be you're continually working on the same problem over and over. Like if you're thinking about a certain type of problem and your unconscious feels like it's making progress, even if it's the wrong content, it'll do that again. Like if you're struggling with something and there's kind of struggle and your unconscious mind makes up the idea of a maze, for example, or whatever, and it gets the impression that you are making progress in that and you're actually solving a problem. Yeah, he's being. What, you want to join too?
Sorry, buddy.
It might do it again and again. Especially if. Especially if it feels like you're making progress. There's so many interesting things about dreams. Yeah.
Like jumping into that, like I said before, jumping into the point where you left off. Like if something abruptly wakes you up, like the doorbell.
And you jump right back in.
And then you go to sleep, like later on that evening, and you jump right back to the point you were.
Yeah.
You're right on that cliff.
Yes. And your unconscious will, will jump back into the story or do the story again or whatever it feels like to solve the problem or work on whatever it is it's working on.
Do you ever find that you're like, okay, I know exactly what I'm going to do when I get back in that dream? Like you're thinking about going back. So maybe that's your brain is like, okay, so let's go back.
Okay, well, let's go back. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I know exactly what I'm going to do.
Yeah. And so that kind of brings us to the next topic, which is lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is one of two. There's a couple levels of lucid dreaming. One would be knowing that you're dreaming, and one would be being able to control your dream. And it could be either or. It could be that you can control your dream, but you're not aware that you're dreaming. I know I've had that, and it's kind of difficult to understand if you haven't done it before. But like the sensation that, okay, well, I'm just going to make this happen without realizing that you're dreaming, or just being aware that you're dreaming, but not being able to control the action. So, and that's something that I think that's mostly researched just out of pure interest, because it's so interesting to be able to control your dreams and do whatever you want, not be constrained by reality. And they've done a lot of interesting research about lucid dreaming. I remember one of the things was they would put a machine on your face, like a mask that measured when you were in REM sleep, and it would blink red, and the idea was it was supposed to wake you up just enough to realize that you were dreaming. And it was interesting that the subjects' minds would not only not realize they were dreaming, but they would incorporate the red light into the dream. For example, they would dream that the sun was flashing red, and they wouldn't know what that meant. One comment was particularly interesting where the guy said, if only I knew that the flashing light was the machine that was supposed to remind me that I was dreaming, I would know that I was dreaming. If only I would remember that the flashing light meant I was dreaming, I would be reminded that I was dreaming. Oh, well. So the brain will often go to strange lengths to keep its own reality in play. And then other people, lucid dreaming is very normal. So, okay. And let's see, one other thing I wanted to talk about. Any other questions so far?
No, not so far.
Okay. So there's such a rich topic. We could talk about this for weeks if we wanted to. So I wanted to kind of end off with tips for remembering your dreams. You have control to a certain extent of whether or not you remember your dreams. And essentially, the first step, which sounds kind of obvious, but it's very important, is to decide ahead of time that you're going to remember your dreams tonight. So I've found that it's surprisingly effective to the night before say, okay, this time I'm going to remember my dreams. And I think it's because it kind of plants a suggestion, a reminder when you wake up. If the last thing you do before you go to sleep is tell yourself you're going to remember your dreams, when you wake up, you'll tend to remember that, which will remind you to think about your dream. So first of all, the main reason people don't remember their dreams is because they don't try to. They don't try to remember their dreams. Almost everyone is dreaming when they wake up. But that is because your conscious mind is not really active at that time, it's really an interesting process. You have sensory memory, working memory, and long-term memory. In order for something to go from sensory memory to working memory, you have to basically pay attention to it. And then in order for it to go from working memory to long-term memory, you have to memorize it. So you've got all the stuff that's in sensory memory. Normally when we're talking and we're awake, things we pay attention to, we normally pay attention to something when we're awake, so it automatically goes into our working memory. So we remember it for at least 20 or 30 seconds. Sensory memory only lasts for a couple seconds. And because the conscious mind is not awake when you're waking up, things are not getting into working memory right away. So they're only going to last a couple of seconds. So you have to be right on the ball where you're thinking about it again. So you have to wake up ready to be thinking about it, going over your dream. Waking up slowly is really important because memory is state dependent, which means that the farther you are from the state you're in when you're dreaming, the harder it's going to be to remember. So waking up slowly. If you wake up to alarm, it becomes difficult to do that for a couple of reasons. The alarm will disturb you, your rapidly changing state, which will often make you forget. So it's best to do this if you can wake up naturally. So if you are able to wake up naturally the next day, tell yourself you're going to remember your dream. And then as you're waking up, wake up slowly. I actually found it's pretty easy to do this. When you decide the night before that you're going to wake up slowly, it's pretty easy to do this the next morning. And then you're going to wake up slowly and you're going to go over your dream. You have to pull it into your working memory. So here's the method that I use for that. I would call it like a folding method, where you think of the entire dream from beginning to end in 2 seconds. So for example, you just quickly go over the entire dream from beginning to end in 2 seconds. That'll get the structure of it and start to pull up the working memory. Then go over the whole thing again over the course of 10 or 15 seconds. And then go over the whole thing again over the course of 30 seconds. So you think about it in just the structure, then you think about it and fill in the major details, and then you go through and fill in as much detail as you can in 30 seconds. So when you do those 3 things, you will have a vast improvement on the recollection of your dreams. So number 1, tell yourself the night before you're going to remember. That will prime you to do this process. Number 2, wake up slowly. And number 3, do this folding process where as soon as you notice that you're starting to wake up, stay down there and go over the whole dream in 2 or 3 seconds, then go over the whole dream again with more detail in 10 to 15 seconds, and then go over the whole thing again in 30 seconds. Even then, you can still forget it afterwards. So my recommendation is once you're sure you've got it, write it down. Then you will, that's the best way to capture a dream for the night. Yeah. All right. Okay, and that's about it. I mean, obviously there's a ton more we could talk about with dreams, but it is about time for us to go. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate your input. And thank you, and I will see you all next time. Take care.